prepared a live webinar planning checklist for you, and I am going to include this as a downloadable PDF as well as a Word document. Sometimes I get a little bit frustrated when I have to download PDF documents and their checklists and things where they're fill in the blanks, because unless it's a fillable PDF, something where you can write on it, it's kind of a pain in the neck. So I will include both of those formats for you. So let's take a look and see what some of the stuff that I want you to think about. Number one is to select the webinar topic. And again, pick the topic that you're going to be discussing in your webinar, and then write a headline. Make the headline snappy, hooky, something that is engaging, something that is benefits driven, and something that is really going to make somebody want to attend your webinar. Try to keep the webinar less than 140 characters. That is about the same length as a Twitter post, the maximum Twitter post, and that is a pretty good rule of thumb for writing a headline that you can work with. Write a description about the headline, about the webinar. Write a description here, the date that you're going to have the webinar, the time of day that the webinar will take place. Make a note if this is going to be a recurring webinar. That may be a webinar that is part of a series, or something that will be done in an encore presentation. So if you're going to be presenting it in any sort of format, make a note about that for yourself, because there are certain things that you can keep in mind when you're setting it up. If you're doing a series, some of the same stuff you're doing doesn't have to be entered all over and over again. So that's good to know. Who is the organizer of the event? The organizer is the person with the top level of administrative control, and the organizer of the event is the person who has the authority to assign other permissions as well. For instance, there are presenters. In many cases, the organizer of the event will be the presenter or the main presenter of the event, but not always. So if the organizer is not going to be the presenter, then the organizer needs to assign whatever permissions are necessary for the presenter or the presenters to be able to share the control of the webinar, to be able to show their screens, to be able to show whatever applications they have, whether they're showing presentations or working online or managing chat or whatever. So you put their names here, whatever notes you want. You may also have panelists. Panelists typically are not presenters, and I'll tell you how panelists work, and how I like to work with panelists is that sometimes I will have a number of people attending a webinar who would like to have some input, who may have some special questions. And there are times when I've had very large webinars with hundreds and hundreds of people, but there are just a few people that I will single out for the ability to ask me a question by phone, or to be able to enter into a conversation in the webinar with their microphone. And those I call panelists. Those are typically people that I will select from my No Blogger Left Behind group. And of course, people who have been through No Blogger Left Behind who are attending a blogging webinar are people who I think are special, and those are people that I'm happy to accommodate and to be able to go deeper with them in their journey in the blogs. Next step is to set up a registration page. And then set up a registration and a lead bridge. And what the lead bridge is the lead bridge is a piece of software or a tool. In WordPress, there's a plugin that lets you connect the registration with your autoresponder and your list building vehicle. For instance, if you're setting up a registration on GoToWebinar doesn't collect those in your autoresponder, but you can work with a lead bridge to do that, and there will be a separate separate video just about the lead bridge. I think it's very important to be able to collect the leads who come in and the registrants from the registration page, and to be able to assign them to a campaign in your autoresponder service. You also want to very, very possibly create a registration survey, perhaps get some thoughts from your folks before the webinar, something that is relevant to the topic. Perhaps ask them questions they would like to have answered. What are their most burning questions about that topic? What is it they would like to hear about? And that's very good information to have when you're setting up a webinar, because you know what people really want to know, and you can better meet those needs with a survey beforehand. You want to definitely set up some webinar alerts, email alerts. When people sign up for the webinar, you want them to get an email that says, welcome to the webinar, it will be on such and such a date and time. You want them to get another alert probably a week before, the day before, and an hour before. So there are a number of alerts. We have, again, we have another video about that, but I'm putting that on this checklist. If you have the ability to collect SMS or cell phone numbers, you can send people an SMS text alert prior to the webinar, and that's a really good thing to do, and that is something that really works very, very well to increase attendance. You may also, depending upon your situation, want to send them an alert via their voicemail to their cell phone. So you can actually send a message. If you have their telephone number, you can send a voicemail message to them that says, hi, this is Fran. Listen, the webinar is going to be starting in about 15 minutes. Get to your computer, check your email. I can create that kind of a voicemail message in a pre-recorded format, and that can go out as an alert as well. You want to make sure somebody is creating the presentation, make sure that's covered. Create whatever handouts you may be including with your presentation, any of the materials. You may want to, for instance, create a PDF form of a PowerPoint presentation and perhaps some notes, and make that available as a handout. You may have a white paper to share. You may have something to share, and again, that's part of your planning. You may also want to create a bonus, and bonuses are a neat thing to do, and bonuses can be used actually to help people get viral for you. So after somebody registers, for instance, you could say, pick up a free bonus, just please send this link to the webinar to, let's say, 3 of your friends or 4 of your friends, or post a tweet on Twitter to tell people about it, or post a link to your Facebook page. There is some special software. It's called Refer a Friend software that lets you tie in a registrant's a webinar registration to a bonus, and connect it with that kind of incentive. That's kind of neat. That's a neat program that I use with one of the Evergreen webinar programs I have. You also want to create some poll questions. Polls are a real great way to engage with your audience, and you can create those ahead of time. I'm guessing you probably want to do those at about 15-minute intervals. Make people click on a link, vote about something, tell you how experienced they are with a particular topic that you're discussing, talk about, sales volume, whatever. One of the neat things about poll questions and about the survey is that this is stuff that people will be doing online. This is interaction they will be doing, and at the end of the day, when you collect your registration information and tracking and see who attended, you will also see how they answered those poll questions, and it will give you a much deeper insight into your audience and actually into the people who attended as individuals. You want to definitely, talk about your team, talk to your team, or consider, if you're doing it yourself, if you are your team, your question management and how you're going to manage questions, and your engagement strategy. If you're a one-person, one-arm paper hanger, and you're the one who's organizing the webinar, doing the webinar yourself, there's a limit to how much you can really monitor questions and engagement, and still, stay on target and deliver your best kind of presentation. So you may want to say, I'll be taking questions after the webinar is over. After the webinar is complete, I'll be reviewing the questions then. So please make sure that your questions are are written in full sentences and I can understand them. And again, consider the type of ways that you will entertain questions. If you're going to just take the questions, if you're going to be looking at the chat, if you're going to open up the phone lines, if people are on their microphones, if you're going to let them do that, or in fact, if you're going to be entertaining questions by email. It's really, really nice to be able to be working with another person, to have a partner on a webinar who can handle those types of things for you. It's a real great strategy to have somebody on the chat, on the questions during a live webinar who can be answering them in real time while you are presenting. So it's a great idea to have a couple of people working on a live webinar. You also want to take a look at your public relations, your advertising strategy. Where are you going to be looking for registrations? You'll have an email list. You have all kinds of facilities. You have the Facebook, you have Twitter, you have all kinds of things. By and large, your email list is going to be the best. You may also want to consider advertising on Facebook and elsewhere, depending upon what you're doing with those webinars. Schedule a practice session. I'm going to add something here that I did not put in. I'm going to insert a row down here and also talk about recording plan. Recording plans, let's say that. Most of the platforms have a way to record those webinars. Some of those platforms like Webex and some others will actually host the webinar and the recording on their servers for you. In many cases, you can also download them to your machine. You can also use a third-party tool to record, something like Camtasia on a PC or ScreenFlow. So you may be able to record, in a couple of different ways. And I think that having a plan A and a plan B is always a very, very good idea, because webinar technology and webinar recording technology is not perfect. It's definitely not a perfect situation. So having a plan B is great. I think I said this, I'm not sure if I said this, but yeah, it's a really good idea to schedule a practice session. If you haven't done a webinar yet, then schedule several practice sessions and take it, from start to finish all the way through, and go through all of these operations and make sure you've got them all done. Make sure that you have a handle on them, that you're comfortable with them before you go live with a real webinar. What kind of tools are you going to use to evaluate your performance? Are you going to ask people to do a follow-up survey? Are you going to make some telephone calls? Are you going to have a debrief with some people afterwards? I think it's a really good idea to have someone you like and trust very, very much to listen. That might be somebody who's a part of your audience, and say, how did I do? Give me your honest feedback. Tell me what I did well and tell me what I didn't do well. And that's always a very, very good thing to do. Again, you want to track. You want to see how many people registered and how many actually showed up. Among the people who showed up, how long did they stay and how engaged were they? There are different tools on different platforms that can actually help you measure engagement. You can actually see with some platforms whether people are multitasking and doing something else besides just listening to you. And then what kind of follow-up are you going to have? Again, this goes back to the email follow-up. And then you want to be able to follow up, ideally, have different messaging for different people. If you have somebody who registered and didn't show up, you don't want to send them the same message as somebody who registered and did show up and attended. So you want to have separate email strategies for the people who didn't show up, the people who did show up and stayed, and also for the people who did show up but who left early. And then there's some extra room here for additional notes. Right below the video, you can collect these documents, and that will help you get started. Let's talk about the factors you can weigh when you're choosing a live webinar provider. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the features, and then following that, I will actually give you a list of webinar providers and a rundown of how I think they really meet the needs of the market. And first of all, you can go to any of those providers and take a look at the presentations. Try to be a participant in a webinar that any of these folks are doing. So when you have an opportunity to be an attendee, look at the webinar from the viewpoint of an attendee and see how it feels. How easy is it to interact? How easy is it to sign up for a webinar? How easy is it to collect materials that people share at a webinar? How reliable are the alerts? How reliable are the delivery systems? And if you have a real good feeling about a particular type of a platform, that's going to give you a clue about something that will be easy to work with as a presenter and something that will position you as a professional when you start doing webinars. Ask to see a demo, and ask actually to be able to participate in a demonstration as a presenter. There should be some type of facility at all of these platforms that let you take the controls before you make a commitment to actually purchase the platform. Take a look at the Q&As. If there's a forum on the platform, see what other people are saying, see what types of questions people are asking. When you measure the questions, see how responsive the community moderators are to the questions in the forum. And if you have questions there yourself, ask them. If you ask a question, see how long it takes for people to get back to you, whether that is in a forum or with email. That's very important. Online collaboration is important. There are different levels of online collaboration with webinars. The most popular type of collaborative activity is sharing control, passing the mouse back and forth between presenters, having an organizer who can make another person an organizer, being able to share controls, and being able to move from one computer to another to different desktop applications. If that is a very important thing for you to be able to do, then that is something that you want to take a look at and try and engage somebody within your sphere or within your team to work with you and check it out. Price, of course, price is going to be very important, and everybody has to take a look at your budget. What is your budget, and how is this number reflected? You may not have a number, a line item on your budget right now for webinars, but if you have a line in your budget for marketing and advertising, then this can easily fall within that. So see what your budget is. Are you budgeting your lead generation in terms of cost per lead? Do you have an overall number? What does that look like, and how does that relate? Take a look at that. What is the return on investment? When you're looking at the platforms, a good question to ask is about training. Is the training included with your purchase? Is there some level of one-on-one training or group training, or is all of the training online? And if you need help, what can you do about that to get the extra help? That's a very good question to ask any of the webinar providers. And is it scalable? You may start with a very small platform, and let's just take a look at GoToWebinar as an example. If you start with their GoToMeeting platform that may give you 25 seats, you may be very happy, and you may go for a long time. You may work for a long time with very small groups, and that may be absolutely fine. But if your audience grows, if your business grows, if you need something that's scalable, that you can expand, how does that work? Take a look and ask your webinar provider, exactly how that works in your business, and what the prices are that are attached to additional seats. How easy is it to use? This is very important. Webinars are pretty easy. You don't really need a whole lot of advanced tech savvy, but who is using it, and what is the level of expertise of the people who are going to be organizing, setting it up, and presenting? Are you going to be presenting? And what is your level of expertise? Some of the platforms are very intuitive and easy. Some of them, have a lot of hiccups. Again, you really, really want to get behind the wheels and try anything, even just to demonstrate it to yourself before you make a final commitment. Customer support is very, very important. Is it included? That's a good question to ask. Some people will include support, or some webinar companies will include support across the board. Some of them have support at different price points, and some of them have different levels of support. What are your must-haves in terms of the features? Make a list of your must-haves and make sure that the platform that you decide to work with has all of that. And also double check and make sure that that they have the security that you need for the type of webinars you're going to do, whether those are sales webinars or training webinars, meeting webinars. Security is very, very important. Let's go over the list now. Let's talk about some of the leading platforms and how they work. GoToWebinar is the one I think most people are familiar with in the real estate industry, because that's the one most real estate vendors and most real estate trainers are using. GoToWebinar lets you really scale a large audience. It lets you talk to a very, very large audience. You can get GoToWebinar platforms starting at about 50 seats to 100 seats to 500 seats to 1,000 seats and more. Of course, the price is going to increase and go up, with more seats, but it's very, very scalable. It's the one that most people use. GoToWebinar has had a little bit of a checkered history. But they are really, really coming along. They've done some really, really great stuff. They have a sister platform called GoToMeeting that is designed for smaller groups, up to 25 or so. Very, very cost effective. You can use them for meetings. You can use them for trainings. And if you have the kind of a webinar outreach program with consumers that really is only going to have small groups, then GoToMeeting may be all you actually need moving forward. Webex has been the gold standard of webinar training and webinar platforms forever. For a long time, Webex was really cost prohibitive, and that was the biggest problem because they never really had a problem in terms of quality. This is a global company. They have all the bells and whistles, and right now I'm working with a beta program for Webex that is very, very promising, great for recordings, very, very reliable, very easy to use, and definitely worth checking it out. Yugma has a free platform and a paid platform. Yugma has a free platform for small use, and it's kind of a neat tool. The problem I had for a long time really was reliability. So I don't think the free platform is something you want to use if you're going to be, doing anything that's really important, because you can't afford for it to be going down. I found reliability not to be a good issue. The other problem with Yugma was the recording. They really haven't evolved with their recording. However, it is neat. They also have a very, very nice interface with Skype, and you might want to check it out just for the heck of it. They've been around for a long time. I confess I haven't, played with it recently. I've been very, very busy, but it definitely is worth something to worth looking at. Live Meeting is a Microsoft product. I see Live Meeting mostly in the government arena. I see some of the government agencies using Live Meeting on a large scale with very, very big audiences. They seem to do a really good job with recordings. They're very good with with live presentations. Incidentally, GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, Webex, and Yugma will let you work with PowerPoint presentation, with the animations that you see, and with live on the web presentations. You go live on the web. When I talk about animations, I'm actually talking about bulleted web points that come in one at a time. A little bit of flash here and there. Some animations with illustrations and pictures and things like that. So that's kind of neat. Any Meeting is a free platform. I mention that because I see some popular coaches and vendors in real estate starting to use that. They have a free version and a paid version. The free version is actually good for as many as 200 people in a setting, and it seems to work very, very well, and very, very good recording abilities. The problem that I see with that is that it is supported by advertising. And I just have, I just have to wonder how professional it really looks to be doing a webinar and a large webinar on a free platform that is very obviously a free platform. You know, I think it makes a statement. I'm not sure that's the wisest thing to do. However, it is real. It's a neat platform, and they do a really, really good job, even with a large group. So, if that's something that doesn't trouble you, then you probably want to take a look at that. Instant Teleseminar is another really good platform, and it's very, very cost competitive. It's very easy to use. Of all of them, I think that Instant Teleseminar may be the easiest to use. It works with PowerPoint presentations or other documents that you upload to the web first prior to the actual event. So you cannot use PowerPoints with animations, and you can't go live on the web. They offer instant playback. They also have a corresponding teleseminar program. Some people use that, mostly for the teleseminar use. As soon as a presentation is finished, it's live, and it's very, 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 very good. So that may be something you want to take a look at. There's actually a workaround to the animation issue that used to trouble me when I was using it, the fact that I couldn't make my animations work, but I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll do a quick video that shows you a workaround to the instant teleseminar lack of animation with a PowerPoint. Skype. Yeah, Skype is an interesting platform. Skype gives you the ability to have group meetings. And if you're going to be doing small presentations that aren't real big, you might want to just give it a shot. Skype gets a little squirrely sometimes, and even when you have a really, really good connection, or you think you have a good connection, things happen. And Skype is not perfect, but I think that you can expect some forgiveness from your audience who are Skype users, because everybody who uses Skype understands that Skype has some issues. So it may be something that you want to use as an experiment. Additionally, Skype and Yugma have an interface, and they work very, very well together sometimes. When they work well, that's dynamite. I think that's a platform that Oprah was using, that combination of Yugma Skype. Some time ago when she was doing that book club or whatever she was doing online, she had an enormous audience, and that was a Skype Yugma configuration. So that's something to take a look at. And again, that's it. There's one more, and that would be Google Plus, and Google Plus lets you do Hangouts. So you can actually go and hang out in Google Plus, and give that a shot and see how that looks. So there you go. I'm going to have links to everything down below the video. So if you want to try any of these, let me know how it works out. If you have a place to leave comments, if this is appearing in, I'm going to be posting this in a couple of different places. So if this is appearing somewhere where you can leave a comment and you find something interesting on one of these platforms, and you would be kind enough to share it with us, we would sure appreciate it a whole lot. Thanks a lot. Webex has been the gold standard of webinar delivery, of online conferences, online meetings for years. The biggest problem people have had with Webex, frankly, has been the matter of cost involved with using the service. That's changing right now, though, and I want to take a look here at the new Webex platform that right now is only available in beta. I am a beta user. I want to show you what it looks like on the back end, and I'll let you know as soon as it becomes available. Take a look at the top of the screen here. This is very, very neat. Right from the get-go, they have some absolutely phenomenal training. And if you click on the link up there, you see they've got some really, really great, nice, short videos. There's an overview of the system. There is, some discussion about the meetings, how to share files, mobile access. Now, this is pretty exciting here, the mobile access, because you can schedule a webinar or a meeting or conference on Webex, and that meeting can be can be registered, can be attended using an iPad or an iPhone and a mobile device. Very, very easy, very, very neat. They also have a complete suite of productivity tools so that you can use this platform with your Outlook. Schedule meetings directly from your Outlook, from your calendar. You can have a collaborative document in an Excel document and start an instant meeting with a colleague right from within Excel, from within Word. So there's a suite of productivity tools that's very, very exciting to me, and I think you'll find it as well. If you take a look at this dashboard, it's very, very socialized, very, very easy. You see I've got my picture there. I can make myself available or not to the people in my team and the people who I share my space with. There is a chat function here. I can build this up with a contact list, and this is a chat much like other existing chats, but this is just devoted to Webex attendees. In the first tab, in the Home tab here, on my profile, I have an ability to set up a meeting immediately, to schedule one, and also to upload documents that I can share in the meetings. If I want to go and schedule a meeting, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to schedule my first meeting here. I'm going to call this my first, let's see, Fran Torson's first Webex meeting on the new beta. How about that? Let's see how this goes. I will schedule this to run tomorrow morning. How about tomorrow morning at, I'll do an early morning meeting and then invite everybody from one of my groups. How about that? I'll make that 7 a.m. Pacific time, make it an hour long, and I'll make it a recurring meeting that I will have daily all week long. I'll end it at the end of this week. So I can just use their built-in calendar over here to say I'll end it then. And I will put in the names. I'll come back to this in a little bit. In fact, you know what I'll do? I'll put my name here right now. I'll put one of my other email addresses. I will get the link and then I will send that out. I'll see how that works to invite other people. So just for the sake of discussion right now, I will use another email address. I can insert an agenda here if I like. I can assign a password, and I can set the audio connection. In this case, I'm just going to leave the audio, and I have the option to record the meeting, and I will do that. I'll record the meeting, so we'll see how those recordings work. So I will definitely do that. I'll schedule it. Voila. Our meeting is scheduled, and when it's time to start, I'll click that button. I can edit any part of this I like, and there are additional options. I can cancel it, I can do that, and I can add additional information. I will see a list of who's invited over here when I have that finished. And let's go up here to the next tab. I can insert files here. So if I want to have a meeting and or in a webinar and I want to share a document, if I want to share a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF file or anything like that, I can upload those things right here and be able to share. All right. I can also, I can upload them. I can create folders, and I can create a document on the web. I can also take a look at my contacts, add new contacts, and import contacts. If I want to import contacts, I can do that. Let's see how they're doing that exactly. All right. I can edit, I can remove. Okay, so I can import contacts from Gmail, Yahoo, and other apps. Let's take a look up here. We have downloads. This is pretty neat. Okay, here's the Webex Meetings application. And again, this is something I've already added to my operating system. They have different downloads for Mac and PCs. There are productivity tools again here that let you integrate Webex with your other applications and tailor them to your browser. Recording and playback options, and again the Webex Universal Toolkit. This is kind of neat, and I will be playing with that, and I'll do a separate video on that. That lets you add Webex files as well as audio flash and other web pages on a PowerPoint presentation so that you can display multimedia effects on your PowerPoint. And that's very, very neat because you can do that either on the webinar, or you can take your recorded documents that you create on Webex and you can import those into your PowerPoint for use elsewhere. So that is a very, very cool tool. So this is a first look at the Webex beta. And again, lots of really, really good stuff here. Good getting started information. Webex does an extraordinary job with videos. They're very, very short. They're to the point. They're very, very easy to understand. They are issuing release notes during the beta, and what a company does when they have a beta product is that when they make additions and changes to the product, they issue the release notes. So you can see the kinds of things that they've done here with this here. You know, they've added the chat. What else? We probably start at the bottom here. Okay, full screen video. It's able to share Microsoft 210 presentations, multimedia sharing. They disclose different problems that they have with the system or issues. I wouldn't say problems. There were always bugs when you're working with it with a new system, and this is very, very neat. And there's a chance for beta testers to offer feedback, and then at some point in time, upgrade to a new version when the beta is complete. So I think this is very, very good. I think this is very, very cool. I think Webex has something good cooking, and I think it's definitely worth looking at. Okay, so one more thing here before we sign off on Webex. I just got a email in my inbox, which is the alert that I sent out, and I want you to take a look at this. I like this. This is really nice. I like the HTML format. Okay, this is the invitation again to join the webinar or for the Webex meeting. Nice graphics here, nice little icons, very, very easy join button. Again, there's no agenda there, so there's nothing appearing, but if there was an agenda, that would appear there. There is a call-in number as well as a VoIP, so you can attend either way. If I had any files that were attached to that meeting, they would be accessible with a click of a mouse here. So if I had any PDF documents or Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or anything like that, a webinar attendee would be able to access that prior to the meeting, and that's pretty neat. So this is good. There's a link here to create an account, a collaborative account, and so forth and so on. So at any rate, take a look at that. I like that. I like the way that looks. Sometimes those other webinar invitations get a little bit confusing. I think this is quite neat, and I think participation and attendance at a Webex online meeting is probably going to be somewhat better just because the invitation is a whole lot easier to understand. Okay, we'll see you in the next one. Evergreen webinar looks like on the back end. Instant Customer is a product, a communication product that lets you combine email and SMS mobile text and Evergreen webinars, QR codes, direct to voicemail technology, and lead capture pages all in a single dashboard. So let me show you what my most recent campaign looks like here. I'm building one for real estate agents, and if you are a real estate agent and you choose to take a look at this product, you just need to get in touch with me, and I'll just give you the the file so you can use it. So this is a campaign I'm setting up for real estate agents to help them attract leads with a webinar about FHA 203K financing, and that's the kind of financing that buyers can use to bill the cost of repairs in the mortgage. As you see, the opening page here on the campaign shows you where your buyers came from. It gives you links to your page, to your lead capture page. It gives you all kinds of templates. This is a lead capture page I set up to help real estate agents who want to learn how to present their own webinars and take their business to the next level doing that. The campaign on the back end includes subscribers. Again, this is one I've just set it up, and I have just set it up, testing it myself, so I haven't released it yet. I've tested myself out 3 times using 3 different techniques. I can run social influence scoring on everybody in here, and we can talk about that at some other time. I have 13 autoresponders set up to correspond to this campaign. I have an email set to go to everybody as soon as they register for the webinar. I also have an SMS message that I can deliver to their cell phones right after they register if they give me their SMS or their cell phone number. I have a voicemail message that I can send to everybody 15 minutes for the event. So I have a message in this system in my own voice that encourages people to go to their email and sign up, and that goes right to their cell phone voicemail. That's a wonderful technology. So as you see here, I have a combination of different types of outreach to follow up prior to the webinar and after the webinar. And I have different messages for people in different circumstances. So I have one email that will go to people who are present who leave early. I have a different email to go to people who registered who were present but they arrived late, to people who were present but they completed the entire event. And also for email for everybody. So as you can see, I have quite a lot of autoresponders here, and this is all on autopilot. I can see at a glance how many people are opening, how many people are clicking through, and again, once you set this up, you can set it up and it just runs on its own. Next, let's go over and I'll show you exactly what the webinar looks like. The webinar technology in the same platform here. This really is the only system like it on the market that lets you add as many communication channels as this to a webinar campaign. Again, I can add any more mobile messages I like right here just by clicking Add SMS. I can add any more email autoresponders, or I can add additional voicemail messages. Now let me take you into the back end and show you what the webinar actually looks like, how easy it is. And again, I can create this once and put it on autopilot and run it as frequently as I like. So if I'm editing my campaign, of course I can edit any of the campaign details, any of the opt-in chat, the thank you page, the voice, the greeting email, but of course we're talking about event down here. Let me just show you a little bit more here. I can get subscriber notifications by email, or I can get them by SMS text. But let's go to the Eventbrite. And I have scheduled it to be a recurring event that will be using video. Again, I have a video that's running, and that will be the basis for the webinar. I have it set up to run on Fridays and Saturdays between May 4th and May 25th. It will run at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I can add other times. The reason I don't add a lot of times is I really don't want to make it look like it's available all the time, because that's the way videos look. Some people like to run it a couple of times in the day, so they may run it at 9 a.m. and then they may run it again at at 5 p.m. It's very, very easy to add any times that you want here. And once you add the additional time, the clients will be able to pick the time that they want. I have mine set out to show events for the next 7 days. Again, you can limit that, or you can expand that so that you can, if you are anxious to get people in and you want to create a sense of urgency and a time limitation, you can set that any way you like, in any manner you like. This is a place where we have the media file selection. On this particular one, I haven't set it up yet. I actually set the webinar details up first, and I will be setting, inserting the file later. So, and that's another neat thing about this particular program. And you can add the video later on. I can enable the chat. That means that there will be a live chat on the page. I have a Facebook chat that will be appearing on this page. That will be live, and that will be beside the video. I can either have that appear beside the video or below the video. I can have cue points. So if I'm going to be selling something, I could have a buy button appearing. I could have a bonus offer, and in this case, I'm not going to be offering anything for sale, but I may have a bonus. I may have something like a PDF file that I'm going to be offering, and that bonus offer can be appearing on the page at any cue point, any point in time during the webinar. There are lots and lots of things built into this, lots of different types of images that are included as part of the system. You have, again, I just have this one here. You can upload your own images, and you can also have a page appearing during your webinar that people can click through, and you can do that with one cue point or multiple cue points. So if you have a point in your webinar where you would like to send somebody to your website, you can have your website appear there. If you want to have some type of a notice appear, you can do that here. You may have a link to another kind of a file, or a link to a video, or something else that you want people to see, and you can include all of that at the cue points that you designate, and that is very, very cool, and that happens automatically. You can have attendance actions also. You can have different campaigns that you can send people to after they are in this particular campaign, so that if they didn't show up, I could send them to another campaign. If they arrived late, I could send them to another. If I want to treat those participants in a different way, I can do that. The way I have it set up right now, I just have everything set up so that that's handled in my autoresponder, but it really is a very, very robust system. And all that. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all of the how-tos. There are lots and lots. If you take a look at this little light bulb down here, there are lots of tips and videos and all kinds of things if you need help. If you are looking for any kind of support, they use Zendex here, and you can just type in a keyword. Let's say I'm looking for a word in there, and then that will give me a list of different topics here and how the tags work in different parts of the Instant Customer system. It really is designed very, very well. I highly recommend it. You can work with the campaigns and broadcast. You can follow-up messages or broadcast messages. This works with at least as much functionality as the best of the autoresponders out there, other ones available commercially. Is a very, very, very evolved program, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. As far as the Evergreen webinars go, there's just nothing like it on the market that has that much choice in terms of follow-up with clients and customers. So I think it's pretty neat. I created an Evergreen webinar checklist to walk you through the steps to create an Evergreen webinar. This is very, very similar to the live webinar checklist that you have also in this course. I created this one in the color green so that you don't get them mixed up. It says Evergreen at the top, and again, there are some subtle differences. In the event that you have already created a live webinar and you're going to be using the live webinar recording for your Evergreen webinar, some of this will be stuff that's already done. You will have already selected a webinar topic. You will have already written the headline and the description in those cases, and you won't have to do that again. We're going to go over the checklist now as if you're just starting from scratch. You have not had a live webinar. You're going to be creating a recording from scratch, and so let's consider it that way. So again, you're going to pick a topic. That topic could be HUD homes, buying a HUD home. It could be how to stage your home. It could be how to finance your home with 203K rehab financing. It could be any topic. After you select the topic, then write a really, really good, hooky, catchy headline, something that will be engaging, something in 140 characters or less, something that can fit within a tweet. We're not doing that at 140 characters just so that you can use it on Twitter, but because that is a good rule of thumb for a headline length that works in many, many cases. Write a description for your webinar. Something that will talk about the benefits, something that will be engaging, something that will give the attendee a reason to actually be there. Then you've got a couple of dates. You want to set a couple of dates for yourself, or a single date to do a couple of recordings, possibly 2 recordings. One is an introduction. And on the registration page, it's very common practice now for people to record a very, very brief 30-second to 60-second introduction to the webinar, an invitation in your own voice. It can be, done with a webcam, webcam direct to face, or it can be done with a PowerPoint or anything else. And that's the kind of an introduction that says, hi, this is Fran Torsen. I'm having a webinar. We're going to be talking about FHA 203K financing. I have my favorite lender who's going to be joining me. Sign up here, and I'll send you the information right away. And that's the kind of an introduction recording I'm talking about. Then you're going to also record a webinar. And the webinar itself, again, is going to be about 30 to 60 minutes in length. And you're going to record that. So you're actually going to be creating a recording that will be converted to a webinar. After you have recorded it, check it out. See how it sounds. Make sure it works okay. Make sure that it loads very, very quickly. If you're creating an Evergreen webinar, it is going to be an experience that is going to simulate a live event. So you want to be sure that your recording doesn't have a great lag time. There's a program called Handbrake that you can download for free at handbrake.com. And if you're a techie kind of person, you can use that and do some tweaking there. If you're not techie, then you can ask somebody who is. When you review the webinar, make some notations about time. And here's why I say that. There are going to be opportunities during the webinar for you to inject some simulated live happenings. It may be in the chat section. It may be by introducing a poll. A poll is a really, really good interactive thing. And you may be asking your people a question in a poll. You may have had a live webinar that had a poll in it, and you want to give your people here in the Evergreen webinar a chance to vote. Now, will those poll results, reflect what your Evergreen webinar attendees are clicking? No, they're not. And you want to be a little bit careful about how you use polls in Evergreen webinar. I'm going to create an entire piece about that. But all you need to know right now is you need to make a notation about the time that you will be doing the poll, if in fact you're going to be doing that. And that would be when the poll would commence, that's the first time, and then when the poll would end. Okay? You may also want to make a notation about time for buttons to be appearing on the page, or for downloads, or for hyperlinks. And with some webinar platforms, there is a space below the video where you can say, okay, at precisely 20 minutes into the webinar, I want there to be a download link to something I'm talking about in the webinar, and I want that to stay on the page for 2 minutes, and you can make that happen. You can say, you may be selling something, you may be selling attendance to something, or something that requires a buy button, and that you have the ability to make a buy button appear, let's say at 40 minutes into the webinar. So if there are places at points in time in the Evergreen webinar where you want to introduce a poll or a link below the video or a button or any of that kind of stuff, make a note to yourself about that. When you're reviewing the webinar, make those notations about time in your checklist here, and then when you get to the point that you're setting up your webinar, it will make it much, much easier. Decide what days or day your webinar is going to appear. You may have an Evergreen webinar that will be appearing every Friday. Some people create webinars that appear every single day, and I think that probably is overdoing it relative to to meeting somebody's expectation for a more live kind of experience. And it becomes very, very transparent when they can attend the same webinar every single day, sometimes 3 times a day, that you're really just working with a video. And I think that that the value and the perceived value of a webinar when it's available all the time every day is really, really significantly less than something that is not. Bear in mind too that when people are making a commitment to attend a webinar, they're making a commitment to carve away some time and devote more attention to this subject than they would to a video that's available all the time. So bear that in mind, and you may want to make it available once or twice or maybe 3 times a week. But anyway, you want whatever you do decide to do is your decision, and this is a good place to make that decision and write that down and make a note for yourself. Also, to what time do you want that webinar to actually be available? Is that going to be in the morning or the afternoon or the evening? Is it during business hours? Decide what is the best time for your market to view, and when you have the most registrations. What you really should do is schedule several and do them at different times and different days, and test that and see where people in your market issue the best response and the most registrations. And when you have a feeling about that, then stay with what works. Again, is it going to be a recurring webinar? An Evergreen webinar can certainly be a recurring webinar, and it can happen as often and frequently as you like. Again, I wouldn't suggest you do it too often. There is another argument to be made about making it available all the time. And again, there are some very, very valid arguments from both sides of the coin there. I'm not going to belabor it. My personal feeling is that you don't want to do it too often, but again, that's your choice. And the neat thing about Evergreen webinars is that is technology that gives you a choice to do things the way you like to do with it. All right. Who's the organizer and the presenter? Again, the organizer and presenter aren't that important here, because you're working with a recording and really working with the technology. You've got somebody who's going to be working with an administrative panel, and that's about it. So that is not a concern. Panelists really are not going to be a concern. You may want to gather panelists for the recording, to create the recording, and that's okay, but you don't have panelists on an Evergreen webinar, nor is there an opportunity to engage in a live way using voice. You want to set up a lead registration page. Again, you may also want to set up a separate web form to gather registrations, and you can do that in addition to the registration page. You can set up a web form and put that on your website. You can share that on Facebook, you can share that on Twitter, you can invite people to sign up just with a simple web form and not necessarily with a page. You may also want to have a registration survey on the page connected to that. That is something you can do. And create a thank you page. Once a person has registered, send them to a thank you page and say, thanks for registering, here's the information. And then, of course, they will get an email reminding them and telling them to mark their calendar. In most cases, you can incorporate a calendar marking function right into the thank you page, and there can be a link there that says, in many cases, add this to your Outlook calendar, add this to your Google calendar, and for whatever calendar type of function you have. You also want to set up webinar alerts, again, just like you would for a live webinar, and use email, use SMS technology, text and voicemail, and that's very, very important. Create the presentation. Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're going to be creating a video, you'll be doing that with some kind of presentation, so that stays on the list. You also want to probably think about handouts and creating some handouts for your folks so that they have something that they can walk away from the table with. Remember, if you're creating handouts, whether they're in Word or PDF, make sure that your contact information is on there. Make sure there's a clickable link so they can find your website. Don't just give them a handout that doesn't have a way for them to get in touch with you. Same thing with bonuses. A bonus can be something that will incentivize somebody to share your registration. Again, create the poll questions. You may or may not want to use a poll question. You may or may not be okay with that. Again, I'm going to create a separate video that talks about using poll questions in an Evergreen webinar, because there are some ethical questions about using that and how to use it. That is an interactive device that can be used to manipulate and skew results in somebody's favor. That's not an ethical way of doing it, but there are ethical ways of doing polls within an Evergreen webinar, and I'll address that in a separate video. Question management and engagement. Now remember, this is not live, but there is room for engagement, and engagement does happen. Frequently there is a chat, a live chat, and you may tie that live chat to an email. I have had live engagement with numerous people attending my Evergreen webinars who engaged using the chat function. And what happens is mostly this has happened on my copyright webinar. I get the most engagement there. And I'll give you an example of a piece of engagement on the copyright webinar. One day I was sitting and I got an email that came from the chat from a woman who was attending my copyright webinar, and she said she was a writer, she's a real estate reporter, and she was having a great deal of difficulty because there were real estate agents who were swiping her articles, copying her articles into their blogs, and she was very, very frustrated. And so she commenced a chat correspondence with me, and the chat happened on her screen. It sent me an email, and then she and I went back and forth using email and talked about her dilemma, and we ultimately connected by telephone after the webinar was over. So there is engagement possibility. There are engagement possibilities using an Evergreen webinar. Did I know that she was going to be there at that moment? No, I didn't. But I happened to be on my computer a lot. If I wasn't on my computer, for instance, when this woman engaged, I would still have received an email. I doubt that she would have had an expectation of hearing from me right away, because I was, probably in her mind, I was conducting the webinar. I don't know that she knew that it was a recording. We didn't talk about that. She liked the webinar, and she did tell me that. So it's a neat way to be in touch with people, to have engagement, to seed engagement, to seed discussion, and connect with your target market. You can do some really, really neat stuff with public relations and advertising. You can advertise these webinars. You can put, create events on your Facebook fan page, create events in LinkedIn and elsewhere. Because when people, are invited to see your webinar, they may see the opportunity to attend, at more than one occasion, and that just stays live, and you can just keep it out there. Always a good idea to practice this stuff anyway. Check your recording plans. Evaluate, take a look. Look at it with an objective I ask people what they think, strive to be better, talk about some best practices, mix it up and have a discussion with people who are also creating live webinars or evergreen webinars. Ask them what they think about it, how you can improve it. The first one's not going to be the best. The first one is going to be possibly awful. But you need to get through it. So get through the first one. Go get through the first one before you actually create something that people are going to attend. Don't create your first evergreen webinar and put it out there unless it's really, really good. It's really unlikely. I have never met anybody who ever did it the first time and had something that they were happy enough about that they were ready to just release it and publish it for the general public. So go through a practice session, by all means. Create a practice webinar, a practice evergreen webinar. When you have it and it's live, you can do tracking just like you can with a live webinar. You can see who registered to attend, who did not attend when they were going to. If they don't attend at the appointed hour, they will get an email that says, sorry you couldn't make it, here's the replay. And then you have a replay decision. Do you want to keep that up there so that they can listen anytime, or do you want to make that a limited window? Do you want to restrict the length of time that somebody can review the replay? I think that's a good idea, because I think you add a little bit of scarcity and urgency to the matter, and that will make people more likely to watch it sooner than later if they think that the opportunity to watch that is only going to be for a short time. Follow up with email, follow up with voicemail, follow up, engage, and at some point in time, you're going to take this and take it to a conversion point where you are going to to move from from prospect to customer to to somebody who's actually working with you in a transactional relationship and doing business with you. And that's the bottom line. What kind of presentation tools do you want to use, and do you know everything that there is available? The presentation tools that you use on a webinar are pretty varied. Most popular thing, I think, is a PowerPoint. That's what I see people using mostly. PowerPoints are great. They're very, very visual. You can have animations in them. You can have things happen, things that appear, things that come in and off the page, that move in and out. We're going to have a complete little unit on PowerPoint. The other thing neat about PowerPoint is you can socialize them. So you can do that in a number of ways. You can go online and you can take a look at things happening online within your PowerPoint. You can also tweet and engage on social media automatically by building that capacity in. And so we'll see that in our PowerPoint presentation. There's another presentation called Prezi that some people like. It's a little bit more snazzy, I think. It's a little more free flow, and I don't know. It's a little new age. People like it. It's very, very engaging. It's a lot of fun. I don't really use it a lot. I've used it a couple of times, and if you want to go, Google that, you'll probably find it quicker Googling it than waiting for me, because I'm just not drawn to it terribly myself. But I've seen it done very, very well. Keynote is a great presentation. Keynote is something that's Mac based. You can use PowerPoint on either the Mac or the PC. Okay, Keynote is a tool that you can use on the Mac and also on the iPad. Now, I'm still a PC gal, so I still use my PC, and until it dies and I can't bring it back to life, I will use that. My next computer will be a Mac, I'm sure. In the meantime, I'm waiting for delivery of an iPad, and I know that there's a Keynote application on the iPad. If that is something that is something I can use for a webinar, I will create a training about it. But Keynote is very, very good. I know a lot of people who are Mac-aholics like it a lot more than PowerPoint. I've seen some brilliant presentations on Keynote, definitely worth looking at. definitely worth doing. Mind mapping, that's what I'm doing right now. I really enjoy mind mapping. I'll do a separate little piece on that. You can prepare mind maps in advance, and you can also create them on the fly. I love mind maps. It's a really, really good way for me to organize my thinking, and as I'm organizing my thinking, I can create a mind map that I can use in a presentation like right now. This is very interesting. I'm using connect.mindjet.com right now because I want to use as many free tools as I can and stuff that keeps the cost down. And every now and then, the system saves whatever I'm working on. It does that automatically, and that's what happens when those little twirly birds come on the screen and it gets gray. So that's what that is. The other way of presenting is just by going live. By going live online and going to websites, surfing the web, going to a URL, looking at websites and engaging. There is one way that I forgot. Hold on, and that is by just working with a whiteboard. Some webinar platforms have built-in whiteboards with all kind of drawing tools and other great stuff. You can also create your own whiteboard, and now that I'm thinking about it, what I'll do is I'll make a little video that shows how you can create a whiteboard, because maybe you want to be thinking about something and sharing some thoughts from other people and just creating something as you go along. So you can create your own whiteboard, and I'll create a little video about that. My very favorite form of webinar delivery and webinar presentation is mind mapping. I love mind mapping technology. What you're looking at here right now is a mind map that I created with mindjet.com. Mindjet.com is a mind map service you can buy. It's not cheap. It's about $400. They do probably the best job. There is a free service that they use, and that's what you're looking at right here. You're looking at the connect.mindjet.com, and you'll see notes below. And I'll also include some notes below for some other programs that are also available. This is a mind map I created when I decided to do Webinar Fever, and the mind map is a great way to organize your thoughts, to take a view and then drill down and get more exact and develop some really good content. It's a great way to develop content and then just kind of talk along the content and follow your thoughts. This particular presentation I'm doing right now falls under the mind map program under presentation tools, and we talk about it, two ways of doing that. Preparing mind maps in advance and creating them live. Mind mapping technology is really rich. I have been doing a lot of learning. I've been taking a lot of courses and studying a lot of marketing techniques in the last year, and I think a lot of the richest learning I've had, a lot of the best content that I've had, and where I really have got the most out of it has been in presentations where presenters were using mind maps. Again, this is a great technology. One of the reasons I like MindJet is because all of this stuff is very customizable. The colors, the fonts, the shapes, line sizes, and everything else are very easy to tailor to your own use. Everything is very easy to to change, to move around, to do different things with. I mean, you can just do amazing stuff with this. You can take the content and you can use it elsewhere. You can export it to Evernote. You can export it to Word documents. You can export it to Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. You can do a lot with this content. In terms of repurposing that I never would have imagined before. Again, so it's very customizable. You can use pictures. And you can have something that's a very rich presentation. Again, this is something that I prepared in advance, that I used previously, and we're going to go next. In the next video, I'll show you how you can actually create one from scratch and use a mind map in a webinar with a live presentation where you have people who can be talking to you in chat or elsewhere and collect that information, get some, take the information and crowdsource it into a mind map. We'll see you in the next video. Let's take a look at how we can work with a live, brand new mind map, in a webinar, and how that could work. I'm going to call this one No Blogger Left Behind Q&A, because I think I'm going to go to a webinar format for my Q&A sessions instead of just working with a teleconference. I think that could be a lot richer. And let's say we have, somebody who wants to have a discussion about niches, has a question about that. We may have a discussion, and I may say, okay, well, let's get a little bit more relevant. What are the niches you want to actually talk about, so that we can, have a discussion that is going to really, really work for you. And, chances are we will have somebody in the crowd, especially in one of my crowds, that's going to want to talk about HUD homes. You may have somebody else who wants to talk about REOs, in more general terms. You may have somebody who wants to talk about first-time home buyers, and somebody else maybe about investor properties. And then, depending upon where the discussion is going to be going, the subtopics could go out. We may want to be talking about developing categories or topics around REOs. If that's what we're talking about, we may want to be talking about financing. We may be, wanting to talk about inspections. We may want to talk about reselling, flipping. And again, we can do that in any one of those topics. Then we may want to, move to another topic, and somebody in the group may want to talk about, WordPress plugins. And we may want to, have a discussion there. We may have, somebody else who wants to talk about traffic, web traffic, web traffic, how we can accomplish certain things with SEO, perhaps, how we can use social media for traffic. We might want to, to talk about something like that. So this becomes a really, really neat vehicle. A mind map becomes a neat vehicle to do that. At the end of the webinar, I can print off the into a PDF file. I can print the entire mind map and attach that to a replay of the webinar. It also gives me an option, depending upon how our discussion goes, if we have it structured right, where I can, let's say I've got a 60-minute webinar and we cover 3 things in great length. Well, maybe I can break that down into 20-minute webinars with the mind maps, and then have discussions that become more like FAQ videos and a little bit easier to follow. So I think that the mind map support is a great way to do a webinar, whether you're creating the mind map in advance or creating it on the fly. It's a great way to be interactive. People can be interactive. They can give you information. They can ask you questions. They can help you fill in the blanks here in the chat. They can do that all sorts of ways, and that could be a lot of fun. I think that's a great way to do that. Also, if you have a very, very small group, and it works okay, and there's not a lot of background noise, then you can invite people to share from their phones, on their headsets or with their microphones. That's something that you want to play with in very, very small groups, because that can become a little bit unwieldy. So don't try to do that if you have more than 10 or 20 people. Trust me, then it gets a little bit crazy. Common presentations you see when you are on a webinar. This is a very simple PowerPoint presentation. You're looking here. My PowerPoint program is open to a just a very, very simple presentation here, how to choose a webinar provider. In PowerPoint, you have a chance to create a series of slides. The slides can contain text and images. And one of the neat things also is that you can make notes for yourself at the bottom to help cue yourself when you are conducting a presentation. You can actually create an entire presentation and then print this out with the notes for yourself, and have a handout for yourself so you can work with that. The other thing that you can do is to build in some animations that keep this slide alive and let you move from one topic to the other using what's called an animation here. Let me show you what that looks like if I bring this slide up for right from here. So if I have the slide and I'm having a discussion, initially what you see is the picture. If I advance the slide by one click, I have the first bullet point. On this one, it's about online collaboration. When I'm finished with that particular subject and I want to move that on, I just click and I just move ahead one step at a time, and I can do that on as many of those slides as I like. What I find interesting in recent days here is that I've been attending some real estate seminars where the real estate presenters have actually been presenting in this mode right here, which is your working mode. A lot of people don't really understand how to work with PowerPoint, but you know what? It still works. They still get their point across. I'm not finding fault. I just think that it's interesting that people do that. So, PowerPoint, it does not have to be difficult. You can use lots of great tools. Just take it slow, take it easy. If this is something new for you, don't let it stop you from getting started. Just work with it. You can get in, a whole bunch of templates and designs for your PowerPoints. You can customize these with your own logos, with your company name, and as I say, you can actually create handouts. If I want to create a handout from this, what I will do is go up to the top, I will hit publish, and then I can actually create handouts in Microsoft Word. I can select any of these formats here. This is one of my favorites. I to put the note below the slides, and in that particular mode, the slide appears at the top of the page and the notes appear below that. Since they appear in Microsoft Word, you can go back, you can edit those, you can do whatever you like. The notes that appear below are the notes that appear down here, and then you can add additional notes in your Microsoft Word document. It's very, very cool and a neat way to go. Sometimes it's nice to be able to copy and create a visual as you are making your presentation and doing that on the fly. And some webinar programs have some built-in annotation tools, things that you can use to illustrate your points, but you don't really need to do that. That isn't necessary. What I have here is just a plain screen for my Paint. It's just a free software that I have on my PC. It came included. Macs have the same thing. I've seen some wonderful webinar presenters use this kind of tool, this very, very tool to create visuals. I've seen one gentleman who talks about, creating a squeeze page, and he will, just create the graphics to show, with a web page, perhaps where the headline would appear. Talk about a placement of a video on the page, perhaps, make that a little bit, color that in a little bit. Talk about where to put the opt-in box. That's just a general idea, and then make notes on the side about the topic, and maybe arrows and all kinds of things that will show how to move from one thing to another. Some of the things that people might want to do. So Paint becomes a really, really interesting thing to do. To work with. What I would suggest is that if you're going to use it as a whiteboard, work with it first, get an idea about the kind of thing you're going to be doing. If you're not using it all the time in a presentation sense, believe me, when you get in front of an audience, it doesn't work exactly the same way, and it doesn't have the same kind of feeling that it does when you're just sitting at your computer alone doing something for yourself. So definitely, take a little bit of practice session and make sure that works for you. Sometimes the best tools that we have are right under our nose, and there's no reason that you have to go out and do something terribly, terribly fancy if you want to put together a collaborative document with the people in your webinar. You don't have to look further than Word, to be honest with you. So don't worry about having something really, really fancy, some really, really amazing annotation tool, because you've got Word. You can create a list, you can create a collaborative document with feedback from your audience. If you're going to use that and do that, and you want to use Word, I will give you a little tip here. It's nice to use a larger typeface, so goose that up a little bit. But you may have people on your webinar who are sharing thoughts and helping you put together a list about something. And as you do that, and as you gather those thoughts from people in the chat, or perhaps, you know, you have them unmuted and you don't have too many people so you can talk to them and have an interactive discussion, you can, you know, create a list. You can create all kinds of thoughts and come up with a collaborative document. Then you can save the document, you can share it with the people who are present on the webinar, and voila, you have it. So don't worry about things being, you know, being perfect or real advanced. You just use what you have, and just use what you have in a virtual working environment, and you've got everything you need right there.